Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I know I'm so late to this. I'm like the last person to make a video on Annihilape in Master League, but I finally got to max it and use it and try it in Master League, and it performed pretty well, I must say. Now I have a hundo and I caught it during Mankey Spotlight Hour a few months ago, and as soon as Annihilape was released in Pokemon Go, I wanted to use it in Master League, but I was a few XLs short. I actually did not get enough XLs during that Spotlight Hour. I needed a few more, so I went out and I started grinding these like crazy, like literally on the morning that the event was released. I went out for 3 hours and walked in the sun and caught a bunch of Mankeys until eventually I had enough XLs for it. But I didn't use it immediately because I was getting so close to Legend and I was doing really well in Ultra League. So I just told myself, continue your battles in Ultra League, get to Legend, and then we'll try it in Master League. And here we are, we're finally trying it, and I use it in 2 different teams. The first team I'm going to use is extremely weak to Mewtwo. It's the one on the screen right now, Annihilape, Ho-Oh, and Zacian. I went 4-1 with this team, and then in a set after, I started seeing Mewtwo, and I realized this team is very weak to that. I got swept by 1 Mewtwo. It was that bad. So I don't recommend this first team. The second team I use, however, is pretty decent. It's still going to be Annihilape and Ho-Oh on the team, but in place of Zacian, I used Dialga. So I also changed the order of the team. It was Ho-Oh lead with the Dialga and Annihilape in the back. So that was a pretty decent team. I recommend that one more than the first team that I'm going to show you guys. I should also say that these battles were recorded a few sets apart, so during Go Battle Week, I was trying so many different teams in so many different leagues. I tried Great League, still trying to figure it out. So if you see the elo fluctuate, that's why. It's because I was playing a bunch of games and not recording, and then I recorded the few sets that I played in Master League. Also, this was my first time trying Master League this season, so I was kind of unfamiliar with the meta. My gameplay is a little bit not great, but still, we went positive with the team, so I'm pretty happy with how Annihilape performed. But that's enough on that, let's get into these battles. The first lead we are going to see is going to be Zygarde, and now I am curious to see how much this Ice Punch is going to do. Zygarde is super tanky, so it looks like we're going to need at least 3 Ice Punches to take it out. Hopefully the counter damage will be enough, combined with the Ice Punch damage, so we'll see. But it is looking like the Zygarde is going to be able to KO us because we let the Earthquake go through. I thought they might try to go for Crunch because Crunch is neutral anyways, so they went for the Earthquake. But that's fine because we get to come in with Ho-Oh and farm the Zygarde down, so we got 2 Incinerates in. That means we're going to be able to throw a move on this Lando, and this was before Lando got that new move, Sandsear Storm. So it doesn't have it yet. It was released yesterday, wasn't it? Yeah, it was released yesterday. While I'm recording this video, it is currently the 25th of January. But I do swap in my Zacian to clear the debuff from the Brave Bird, and my opponent has a Solgaleo in the back. Now I'm just hoping that double shielded Ho-Oh will be able to take this game. I was able to farm the Solgaleo down. It just took 1 Incinerate to take it out. But now they are going to bring the Lando in, and if they had baited, they would have actually been able to take this game, I think. But I'm going to be able to reach another Brave Bird, and I still had another shield to shield the Stone Edge from the Lando. So I was going to be able to take that game, and my opponent top left. On to the next match, we're going to see another Zygarde. Can someone please explain to me how everyone has Zygarde already? I barely have 20 cells for that thing. But my opponent this time, instead of staying in, swaps out into Ho-Oh, and I managed to catch the Sacred Fire on my own Ho-Oh. I'm going to bring my Ho-Oh in, and actually mine is buddy boosted, so I do win CMP if we CMP tie. I go for the Sacred Fire because it looks like my opponent is in Sacred Fire range. Again, we were able to land the Shadow Ball from Annihilape on this Ho-Oh before we caught a move on our own Ho-Oh. I'm going to be able to reach a Brave Bird as well, and it looks like my opponent is going to invest both shields. They bring Zygarde in instead of farming me down. If they had farmed me down, it would have been very tricky for me because I'm really weak. The 2 Pokemon I have left are weak to Ho-Oh, but my opponent brings the Zygarde back in, and I'm going to bring Zacian and go for these Play Roughs. Now they go for Crunch. they might be running Outrage. I think they're going to go for another Crunch here, or it might be Earthquake. Nope, they go for the Crunch again. But I bring in Annihilape. I have so much energy on it. Going to go for an Ice Punch, KO the Zygarde, and then I get greedy here. I try to go for a full farm down on this Ho-Oh, and I should have thrown the Ice Punch. They're going to be able to reach a move and take us out. I'm going to bring Zacian back in, and my opponent has a Heatran in the back. If I had close combat on the Zacian, I would have won this, but 2 Wild Charges is not going to be enough to take them out. We are going to lose this game. GG's to our opponent. Also, I think if I had thrown that Ice Punch on the Ho-Oh and had a little bit of health left on my Annihilape, the counter damage combined with the 2 Wild Charges might have been enough to take the Heatran out, but I messed that one up, so I lose that because it was my fault. But moving on to the next match, my opponent leads Rhyperior, which is a really nice lead for us, and then they bring in Zygarde. I stay in a little bit because I want to chip with the Ice Punch, and then I think I am going to swap out into Zacian. Yep, I do that. I felt like I had to weaken it because of how tanky this thing is, so at this point, 1 Play Rough should be enough to KO if my opponent doesn't shield. It is. We're able to take the Zygarde out, and then my opponent is going to bring Rhyperior back in, and they go ahead and shield, probably expecting a close combat. But that's good. We take a shield from them, they go for Rock Wrecker, and they're able to take us out, but at least I was able to maintain alignment. That means my Annihilape is still going to be aligned with this Rhyperior. Rhyperior is very bad for my Ho-Oh in the back. I'm going to go ahead and shield whatever this first move is. It is a Breaking Swipe, and unfortunately, we get the debuff, so these Ice Punches are going to be doing a lot less. We take their second shield from them at least, and we're able to get the Rhyperior really low. My opponent has a Xerneas in the back, so my plan was to no shield whatever the Xerneas was going to throw, save my shield for Rhyperior, and then I would have had a chance to take that game. But my opponent sees the Ho-Oh, top left, so GG's to our opponent. Moving on to the next match, we are going to see a Palkia on the lead. Now what I'm going to do is build up to the Shadow Ball, and then I'm going to bait with an Ice Punch. My opponent shields it, that's good, we're able to take a shield out of them, but I do not want this Palkia to see my Ho-Oh, so I'm going to go ahead and shield myself, and then I'm just going to go for an Ice Punch against this Palkia, and I was trying to get it low, but then my opponent swaps out into a Ho-Oh, and I'm going to bring my own in now, and I'm going to no shield whatever the first move is, and then I'm going to go for a Sacred Fire. I'm actually planning here to let my Ho-Oh go. I think this is going to be a Brave Bird. If it's a Sacred Fire, I will live, and I am able to reach a Brave Bird. Let's see if my opponent wants to use their second shield. They don't. We're able to get the Ho-Oh out of the way, but I am expecting them to have another Fairy answer in the back because they led Palkia, and they have a Skeledirge. Now, I don't know if Skeledirge is any good in Master League, but I really want to try it. I go for an Ice Punch there, just hoping that my opponent wasn't counting or keeping track of my energy. That was my only win condition because I really needed to get their final shield out of the way, and I also didn't want to use my last shield on my Annihilape. I wanted to save it for the Zacian. I'm going to go for a Wild Charge here now on the Skeledirge, and I should be able to reach a Wild Charge on the Palkia, take the Palkia out, and take this game. We also had a shield left. So GG's to our opponent. Now, I thought my opponent might have back-to-back Aqua Tails, so I was really worried about that, but we were able to get the Wild Charge off. Moving on to the next match, we are going to see a terrible lead, and I don't really have a swap-in for this. If I swap into my own Ho-Oh, I will be 1 fast move behind, and I will lose that. So we're going to see Apex Ho-Oh on the lead. If I go ahead and I shield the first one, hoping to get a shield out of them with the Shadow Ball. Let's see if they do. They don't, they let it go. Ho-Oh is super tanky, but at least it's in a range where I can farm it down with the next Pokemon that I'm going to bring in. I choose to bring in Zacian, and I think this is going to be Ho-Oh Double Fairy. And I was seeing Ho-Oh Double Fairy a lot, but at this point, I didn't recognize that that would be the team composition, and I make a huge mistake, and I bring Ho-Oh in against a fully loaded Zacian, and they have Wild Charge. That is going to be super effective to our bird, and my opponent has a Xerneas in the back. I should have saved the Ho-Oh. I should have stayed in with my own Zacian against theirs. But we're at least able to take their Ho-Oh out before they get a move off, and we're able to take their final shield, and now I should be able to reach a Play Rough and take the Xerneas out. 1 Play Rough should come really close to KOing, and my opponent isn't going to be able to reach another move before I am able to do enough quick attack damage to them and take the Xerneas out. So GG's to our opponent, but Ho-Oh really would have been able to sweep that game. And that's a 4-1 with the first team that we used. However, you see where it's weak. If I see Ho-Oh on the lead, I don't really have anything to swap into it. I kind of just had to stay in with Annihilape and sack it. The team also struggles so much against Giratina Origin and especially Mewtwo. Mewtwo will absolutely destroy this team. But this next team, I would say, is pretty balanced. And up first, we're going to see an amazing lead of Groudon against our Ho-Oh, and my opponent is going to swap into Dialga. I'm immediately going to bring in Annihilape, and we can finally see Annihilape against Dialga. I'm going to go ahead and shield the Iron Head, and then I'm going to get the Dialga low enough to where an Ice Punch will KO, and I have so much energy stored on this Annihilape that I'm even going to be able to throw some Ice Punches on this Groudon. If they go for a Fire Punch here, it is not going to be enough to take us out. I'm going to be able to throw another Ice Punch. Let's see if they decide to shield. They don't. They are so low, and my opponent has a Zekrom in the back. Dialga is absolutely going to destroy the Zekrom. I'm going to go ahead and shield in case it's Outrage. It is. My opponent got RPS so bad that match. They go ahead and they top left. So sorry to our opponent. That was so unfortunate for them. But it's okay because it looks like we're going to get instant karma when we get RPS on the lead by a Kyogre. I'm going to just swap into Annihilape and hope that I can do something with my Annihilape. I shield the Surf, and then I'm going to go for a Shadow Ball. I don't bait in case my opponent was expecting me to bait, which it looks like they were, and then I'm able to reach an Ice Punch, and from this range an Ice Punch would KO, but my opponent goes ahead and shields. They want to keep alignment. I'm going to bring Ho-Oh in and farm the Kyogre down with my Ho-Oh, and my opponent has a Rhyperior in the back. This is so bad for my backline. Both of the Pokemon I have left will not be doing well against this, so I go for a Sacred Fire and get the Rhyperior low, and then I bring in my Dialga. My opponent is going to have their own Dialga in the back. I'm going to go immediately for the Draco Meteor. I probably should have baited. I'm not sure. I wouldn't have been able to make it to another move anyway, so it's fine. Actually, no, I think I might have had a chance because I would have gotten the Dialga a lot lower with an Iron Head, so I could have gone double Iron Head. The Dialga would have been a lot lower. It would have been in farm down range for Ho-Oh. Ho-Oh would have had a move for Rhyperior then, but I don't know if the move would have been enough to take the Rhyperior out. So might have had a chance there, but we are going to take the loss in that game. Now moving on to the next match, this is such a good game. We are going to see Dialga on the lead, which is, I think, a good lead for us. Let's be honest, this matchup kind of sucks for the both of us. Of course, the Dialga is going to shield the Sacred Fires, and the Dragon Breaths are going to start to add up. Now, I could have reached another Sacred Fire here, but I go for a Brave Bird, and I immediately swap into my Dialga to clear the debuff, but we both swap at the same time. My opponent blind swaps into a Groudon, and they get really lucky because I blind swap into my Dialga, and they actually use their second shield on their Groudon, so they are 2 shields down, and at this point I decide I'm just going to let my Dialga go. They're going for Fire Punches probably because I still have 2 shields left, but I'm just going to let Dialga go and hope that my Annihilape can sweep whatever my opponent has in the back. I have to shield here if it's Precipice Blades. I can't risk that anymore. This is the only healthy Pokemon I have left. And my opponent has a Xerneas in the back. I go for a Shadow Ball, and then I bring in my Ho-Oh, hoping that whatever this is, I can live it, but I don't. It is a close combat. They take our Ho-Oh out. I'm going to go ahead and shield my Annihilape here. They go for another close combat. I go for a full farm down on the Xerneas because they are so debuffed. We're able to take them out. And at this point, my opponent can't do anything. We're going to be able to take that win. GG's to our opponent. On to the next match, we are going to see a Palkia on the lead. Terrible lead for us. I immediately swap into Annihilape. For some reason, I'm using Annihilape as my safe swap, but my opponent brings in a Landorus, and this time it has the Sansear Storm. This was a couple days later. So I'm just going to go for these Ice Punches, which are going to be super effective against Landoras, but because it has that new move, it is going to be able to debuff me, and we're not going to be able to do enough damage to take this thing out. They're also going to outpace to a third move and take our Annihilape out. It only takes 2 Sandsear Storms to take Annihilape out. My opponent is of course going to bring the Palkia back in. At least I was able to get some farm off of the Landoras, so I was able to throw a Brave Bird on the Palkia and take my opponent's final shield. And my opponent has a Solgaleo in the back. It is going to be countering my Dialga, but here I see a win condition where if I farm the Solgaleo down with my Ho-Oh, I should be able to reach a Brave Bird on the Palkia. They have no shield left. Palkia is pretty squishy, so the Brave Bird should be enough to KO. I have a shield left too, so I should be able to comfortably shield this Aqua Tail. We're going to reach that Brave Bird. Let's see if it KOs the Palkia. This has to KO. Otherwise, if it doesn't, but it does. We're able to take the Palkia out. We were hard countered on the lead and hard countered in the back, and we were still able to take that win. GG's to our opponent. Moving on to the next match, we are going to see a Ho-Oh on the lead. Now this time, my Ho-Oh is not buddy boosted, and it looks like my opponent's is. So I am not going to be winning CMP in this match. I didn't have my Ho-Oh buddy boosted in this match because I went ahead and I put my Dialga as my buddy, because usually it is recommended that Dialga gets the buddy boost for those Dialga mirror matches. Now, I'm going to let my opponent take me out with a Brave Bird here, and my plan was to farm them down with my Dialga. However, my opponent instantly swaps into a Zacian, and I'm starting to recognize this line. It is going to be Ho-Oh double Fairy. I cannot win against this. I have 2 things that are weak in the back, 2 Fairy types. So if it's Xerneas in the back, I'm going to have a really hard time. I'm going to go for another Iron Head here. We were able to take their first shield with the first Iron Head, and we're able to take them out with the second Iron Head. They're going to bring Ho-Oh back in. I'm going to go for an Iron Head again, and this should be enough to KO the Ho-Oh. However, they go ahead and they shield. They have energy on Ho-Oh. They're going to take her final shield here because I have to shield whatever this is going to throw. And of course, my opponent has a Xerneas in the back. I'm not going to be able to do anything to it at this point, so I go ahead and I top left. However, we were still able to go positive, and I want to try this team again. But that brings us to the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed those battles. I really had fun playing Master League for the first time in the season also. And if you guys like my videos, please consider subscribing. Maybe leave a like. It helps me out so much. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye bye!